This is the Mod Pod, brought to you by Modality, helping businesses optimize their Microsoft technologies everywhere.
Hello and welcome to episode 29 of the Mod Pod. We have three topics for you today, two serious, one light-hearted. The first one is the Meeting Room Premium and the pros and cons. We're also going to talk a little bit about the VMware and Broadcom merger, and we're going to discuss facial recognition and some of the security implications around that and biometrics. And we have a team of four today. We have Chris Burns, who is Senior Technical Architect. We have Stephen Smith, who is a Senior PM. And we have Lewis Wheeler, who is a Senior Consultant. So a whole load of seniors on here today. There we go. Obviously not in the age rating. We're all seniors. So yes, I suggest we crack on.
Okay, guys. So Meeting Room Premium, product from Microsoft. We've got customers asking for it. Value? Do we think it has value? Does it not have value? What do our customers need in reality, in the real world? Can we advise them? I guess that's the question.
Yeah.
Who wants to start? Are you going to go? Actually, I'll tell you what. Do you want to explain what the Meeting Room Premium short level first?
Yeah. So very quick. I'm really interested in this one because Teams meeting rooms definitely, as we're returning to. I guess the world is returning to the office in a short amount of, in a very small period of time. These devices are really popular, but one of the age-old problems that we've had with meeting room devices is, your CEO goes in and the cable's been unplugged out of a TV, or the microphone has been moved, or it's terrible audio quality. And Microsoft have brought out this product called Microsoft Teams Meeting Rooms Premium, and the idea being is that it's a bit more proactive rather than reactive in dealing with these issues. So the example that's given is the HDMI cable has been unplugged from the TV because the person that was in the meeting room before said, "Oh, I'll just plug my laptop straight into the TV," and forgotten to plug it in. That would flash up a warning. It ultimately can raise a service ticket in something like ServiceNow. The big question for me is, and as you mentioned there, Steve, is it worth it? Microsoft charge $50 per room per month for this particular service. And so far, what I've seen versus the promotional material is it's proactive. It warns you. It deals with those that you don't get a CEO knocking on the door saying it doesn't bloody work anymore. But is it worth $50? Personally, I think you pay a lot for Microsoft Teams and 365. I don't see why they don't roll it into an A5, but it'd be interesting to see what people's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I think there's in my head, which is a rather simplistic place, there's a certain amount a room service like that is going to be able to do, right? And it doesn't matter whether or not you've actually got a full video managed service team or whether you're taking some sort of service like Meeting Room Premium. Is if it's about updates, if it's about the devices not operating correctly or performance or something like that, great, absolutely, flag it up straight away. There's always going to be a physical limitation as to what it can do. So you take your analogy, or sorry, your example of a HDMI cable being unplugged. I think we are still, fortunately, quite some way off the AI being able to make its way to the room and go and pick up the cable and plug it back in. Yeah. So, your alerting type services are always going to come unstuck at that point, not unstuck, but you need somebody to go and actually plug the cable back in. And obviously, if you get an alert through, you've got to go and do it now, right? The part I think is interesting is, Windows devices, not just the Teams sort of meeting rooms, etc., for quite a while, have said to you, your Wi-Fi's not working, or your performance isn't so great, or you might need to do it. So that sort of stuff, I think, is there. For me, the big question is that worth $600 a year per room?
Well, actually, a previous customer that I dealt with, they actually paid the IT firm to actually go out in the mornings and set up the meeting rooms 3 times a week. And that would be a perfect scenario. Like, they actually paid the company to go in, travel from one side of the city to the other, to go in and make sure the meeting room was ready for an important meeting 3 times a week. So
Wow.
that, yeah,
Wow.
that
That-
was pre-COVID. Whether that company still exists, I don't know.
Well, I guess in that scenario, you wouldn't necessarily need to go and check all of the meeting rooms. You just go and check which ones have got alerts on them.
Alerts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could actually sit there, open it up and go, no, we're all good.
Don't need to travel across the city. Yeah.
So what I would find interesting there is who would, because so the customer would be billed by Microsoft for this particular service, but ultimately the benefit in that example is the IT firm, right? Because the IT firm might say, well, actually, we've just looked at the alerts on that. We don't need to visit. And even if they didn't need to make any changes, I'm assuming in that example, Lewis, that the IT company still charged because they went out and did the check, right? I know I would if I had that business. The customer is now saying, actually, we're paying $50 per month per room. We're also paying for the IT team to go out and check. I think if it was bundled into that, let's call them the partner, because that's the way Microsoft refers to these, right? If that cost was attached to the partner, I can see that being a really cost-effective way for the partner to operate. But because the customer is paying for it regardless, would the customer turn around and say, we don't need the partner anymore? We'll just send our IT teams out? I guess to answer your question there, Pete, in that element, if they're paying $1,500 a year to this IT partner and they're now paying $600 because they've got an alerting system and send their own IT team out, maybe it is worth it in there. I mean, ultimately, it's down to a customer and what they value to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, with the experience of remote working, everybody's used to stuff just working. You know, Teams, it works. You've got good quality. You know, we are sitting. I assume we're all sitting at home. You know, working happily away. Good quality video. It all works, doesn't it? And you know, we're happy. So going into an office, I think users are more demanding a good experience. So that's the challenge, isn't it? It has to be good. It has to be working.
So, sorry, go on, Steve.
Yeah, no. So I think that's the advantage that this tool may bring in terms of people have an assurance that their comms rooms are working to a certain degree. And obviously there are limitations in the tool and what it can monitor and all the rest of it. But it gives that assurance, doesn't it? If companies need that, then it use.
So there's I guess there's sort of two things off the back of it. You're absolutely right about the things just working and how important that is, because if you go into the room and it has been disconnected and you don't know what to reconnect, your experience is the room doesn't work, right? Yeah. So you're instantly just go, oh, I'll just sit at my desk and do it. So you are going to kill off that area. The flip side of, I guess actually it's the flip side of what you were saying, Lewis, about sort of sending people to go and actually plug these things in. I do know companies that have basically gone round and sealed and glued in the cables and connectors to the backs of the devices to actually just stop people taking them out in the first place.
Years and years ago, that was me with the glue gun. So yeah,
was it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, maybe don't pay your $600 a year. Just pay sort of £3.59 for a big pot of glue and go around once. Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah. I mean, the marketing on it is really the big one that I was impressed with, and I know we were talking about this in the pre-meeting, was where the artificial intelligence can make changes. So the big one that was sold on me was the Teams Room device isn't authenticating with the Teams service because the certificate isn't valid. And the artificial intelligence looked at that and said, why isn't it authenticating? Because the time shift, I think the clock on the device was 15 minutes out. So the artificial intelligence had said to the device, reset your time to this NTP server and correct it. And as soon as it did that, it started to connect. So I guess I'm a bit of a Luddite and I'm quite negative on this because when I originally saw it, I thought it was just as a SNMP pulse, right? That, yeah, something was wrong. And we've had SNMP and syslogging for decades, right? What's different here? Stuff like that, for what it can fix and get over, those are annoyances that have a massive impact on end users that don't even know that there's a certificate, never mind that it has to be, the times have to be in sync for the certificate to apply. Yeah,
and that's interesting. And I guess, the reality of it is if you send somebody down to a room to plug a cable back in, they're going to be able to work it out fairly quickly that, it's not on the network or the HDMI has been pulled out or whatever it may be. Something like the time being out is going to take time to work out, and I think rooms up until recently have been a TV screen plugged into some sort of device. So, definitely with the Teams meeting rooms, it is a little bit, goes a little bit deeper than that. So actually, I think there's a fair amount of good. I mean, obviously we've just, we've signed up as an elite partner, which I think, we're still sort of exploring how that really works as a, as a benefit to us, because the reality of it is loads of people come to us about meeting rooms. How many people come to us about meeting rooms, premium and that sort of stuff? We haven't seen many clients asking for it really, but then I guess it's more aimed at being a direct interaction with Microsoft service.
Is it because we're so early in the cycle? We've got people now going back to the office that Teams meeting room devices are now just being sold, and there's the Android and the Windows, Android being brought out to make it a bit easier, even more so. And that the natural thing is right, people are starting to use it now. Now we're starting to see those problems. Oh, by the way, Mr. Customer, we've got a premium service that we work with Microsoft. So is it just because of the evolution of the life cycle we're in?
I think you've hit the nail on the head in some respects, in the sense that we were told about this meeting premium because the client wanted to engage in it, and we already have a very, very large estate with them, and we did some digging around into it. It's been out 2 years, but of course we've lost the last 2 years. So actually, is it just the state of the world that has actually cut this product off?
2 years,
yeah.
About 2 years put back, and now in 2 years' time, we might have customers coming to us going, "Hey, actually, that service looks really good."
Yeah,
and most people want, when you're rolling out, CAP devices, all that kind of stuff. People want monitoring on that, right? They're buying stuff off Polycom or whoever, and they want to know that they've got software to back it up, and monitoring all those devices up, for software upgrades, all that kind of stuff. So it is similar to that, isn't it? It's kind of along those same sort of lines, really, and that's a demand from a lot of people, as they're rolling out those kind of devices or even headsets. That's kind of the demand, isn't it? So
and actually,
in line with.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on that. I was just looking at the Microsoft brief here for this particular product, and one of them that stands out is update management, and something that might be different from from old school Cisco or Mitel conferencing systems, whatever they were. Update management. Now, Teams being a cloud service, we all know, right, is constantly on the move, right? They're constantly creating updates. We know that certain things don't connect. historically, we put the device in, it works on a standard base H323. These devices need to talk to Teams and need to talk to the most up-to-date language or most up-to-date APIs. And actually, this service does that as well, as it keeps these devices updated. And something like, as I say, I keep going back to the SNMP and syslog. That's something that didn't happen. It required manual intervention. So actually, the more we're talking about on here, the more I can see the benefit. Still don't know if it's worth $50 a month, but I can certainly see the benefits of it.
Fair enough.
I think Microsoft are looking to make some money out of it. So yeah.
Let's see. That's their general business plan, is to make money. Stuff, Cool. Right. I think that sounds like a relatively natural place to pause. Interesting one, though. It will be interesting to see whether or not that actually gains traction properly over the next few years. But I do think they've definitely been hampered by just stuff. We'll call it stuff going on in the world. And who knows? Right. Let's go to topic number 2.
Right, so for topic 2, it's on Broadcom buying VMware for £61 billion. Well, dollars, actually. So what does this mean? That's what I've been reading about online. There's a lot of negative press about it. I haven't seen any positive press. So I thought maybe we could have a discussion and actually look a bit on the positive side as well, maybe touching on the negative.
So, okay, let's start with an easy positive. 61 billion's a lot of money.
Absolutely. Yes. Why them? Why did they buy them?
Is that's just sorry, and I know top level of this 61 billion, is that getting reinvested into the business, or is that going to shareholders? Where do we know where that money's going to?
I think we might have fallen
it
back
might
on
even be
that,
commercially sensitive, that one.
Yeah.
But I suppose, I mean, ultimately, right, Broadcom spending 61 billion on, you're right, Pete, right, spending that kind of money on any product, they're going to want to see an investment. They're going to want to see something from it. They're not going to just let a product wither and die at that kind of money. I think the big question for me is Broadcom, who are, I mean, the only reason I know that name is for things like IoT devices, like the little plugs and switches that you plug in the wall. I don't know whether they have a bigger product set. There is a more fundamental question: has the industry moved away from on-premise virtualization to the cloud? I think that's probably a contentious topic that we've probably explored a few times, but ultimately, it keeps VMware in the game. I think. What was the alternative?
Well, and this is my sort of like thinking, because I've been mulling this over, and forget Broadcom for a moment, all right, and the amount of money they've invested, because they obviously see something. They've obviously got a plan somewhere. Because you said you don't invest 61 million into buying something unless you're going to do something really with it. So with VMware, we obviously know it all for the on-prem virtualization. Do we think then that this combination with Broadcom is they want to take on-prem virtualization to a new world? They've got a new concept that maybe people haven't considered, or do we think that they are going to look at potentially then trying to become the 4th public cloud provider based off the back of the VMware brand?
Yeah, so Broadcom have actually put out some sort of notification to VMware employees, and one of the first things they're going to be looking to do very, very quickly is moving them to a subscription-based model, rather than VMware licensing, and you kind of just pay for the support and you pay per CPU or per core. They're wanting to change it and kind of follow suit with the Microsofts of the world.
Okay, so that makes sense, because that's probably a far more palatable conversation with organizations. going to that sort of subscription base, because you then got some sort of, you know, Broadcom and VMware will get their sort of their regular, consistent cash flow coming in. But I guess it's going to, you know, I mean, obviously, I think, Chris, you mentioned it yesterday, you know, the next version of Exchange, etc., or whatever it is going subscription model, even if you have it on-prem.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess there's, you know, you could buy it and change it to a subscription model, maybe because the business model behind it wasn't particularly current. I don't know.
I mean, for me, I think I always remember VMware, and as previously as in a previous life, I was an IT manager, and I think the first version of VMware I put in was version 3.0, and it was always expensive. And subscriptions have positive and negative, right? But the biggest positive is things like smaller organizations might have said, you know what, I need to start this small and then grow up. And subscriptions are really good for that, because they allow you to scale rather than you having to have a massive capex right at the beginning. And I think that was always VMware's downfall, is they wanted to charge premium prices for all of the big high availability, for SRM. And in fact, SRM at that time was another third-party cost as well. It wasn't even rolled into the main cost. For me, I think the question is have they missed the boat? They're going to placate their existing subscriber base, but who are they going to be aiming for now? Because
what
I think,
is next?
What is next? Yeah, it's and I mean, I'm old enough to remember VMware Air, AIR.
Was
and
that
it was
the cloud platform?
That was their cloud platform that they tried to do, and I think they had the backing of Dell at the time. So they had a massive manufacturer of server equipment, and it seemed to die out. So your question there, Pete, are they going to be the fourth? It won't be the first time they've tried it.
Yeah.
The challenge there is cloud isn't just infrastructure, and I can't see VMware coming out with a PaaS platform. So are they going to create a web server PaaS type platform, or is it all going to be IaaS? And again, that question is, has that whole ethos of just picking servers up and putting them into the cloud moved?
Yeah, but also, you know, if you want to be the next big public cloud provider, you've got to create a massive global footprint. Yeah. So that's no small feat. Footprint feet. There we go. Steve, on your journeys throughout various clients and stuff, are people just talking about public cloud, or are they still talking about VMware infrastructures and on-prem virtualization? Is there a pattern anywhere?
That's a good question, of course. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked it. I think experience is people are going cloud. Just because it's more flexible, just the flexibility to go up, go down, all that kind of stuff. That appears to be. I mean, there were in one of the companies I was working with had a huge need for a high-powered computing, which was based on site in their design department, and you know, so that wouldn't go to the cloud. That would be staying on site. And it was huge. I mean, I had the privilege of being shown around it. One night, I'd made a mistake, and that was my punishment, I think. But anyway, there you go. Another story for another time, maybe. But yeah, so I think generally, but in terms of, you know, the world we're in, you know, the Microsoft world, definitely going cloud. So yeah.
Okay, so the Microsoft cloud is the Microsoft people who are interested in Microsoft going to the, you know, the Azure, etc. Lewis, from the, I guess, the more sort of infrastructure side that we deal with as well, what's the take up of sort of VMware that we are you aware of that?
It depends on the industry, like which vertical. There are still many firms that are skeptical of moving into public cloud. More and more people are obviously going into it, but there is some verticals that are kind of lacking. So VMware is still a chosen product, but with the rise of Hyper-V, for example, and with every version of Hyper-V that comes out, it gets more and more Azure-like. So it's getting better, and people are opting for Hyper-V because they chuck in your Windows licensing as well for free. So it comes down to cost, and people just want something that works.
So it's interesting that you say that, right? Because I pulled up some of the comments that from Broadcom's, looks like their CAO, and they were asking, are those benefits? They was asked, what's the benefits for end users? And it's a greater choice and flexibility to build, run, manage, connect, protect traditional and modern applications at scale across diversified and distributed environments. But what I found interesting about the second comment is that, and I didn't realize Broadcom owns Symantec and CA, Computer Associates. And they're actually going to rebrand those two badges under the VMware name. So now Symantec had a massive software from backup, but I think this is going to be one to watch. It's what they plan on doing it. But if they try to do that, VMware is known for virtualization, and Symantec was known as antivirus and backup, right? So what is the product that they're going to produce? And on Lewis's point is, who are they going to compete against? It's definitely for me one to watch and see what they do. But I guess, Lewis, you'd seen online that there was a lot of negativity. What's the general feel? What are most people fearful of? I mean, I'm guessing the negativity is from existing VMware customers.
It's everyone who's watched Symantec fall, basically. Yeah. So Symantec isn't what it used to be, or according to online anyway. I haven't touched their products for a while, to be honest. No. But yeah, apparently Symantec went from thousands, maybe millions of customers, and then they kind of lowered it down and only targeted the bigger clients, and a lot of people felt put out. That's from just reading the comments online. That people are worried about. VMware's always been, winning badges for best employer, family sort of environment, and all of a sudden this company's buying, and they're all worried for their jobs. So I think a lot of these posts are VMware employees and just going online and venting. I'm trying to find some comments from people who actually use VMware just as a product, but it's actually very difficult to find. It's more people talking about the people.
Yeah, so you do need to be very careful in things like these, because the reality of it is that when you get a change like that and emerge, and I dare say most companies have gone through some sort of merge in somewhere along the lines recently. The way you treat employees in that change is absolutely vital. But if that leads to a public negative opinion of the product, that's quite dangerous. So some sort of clear direction from Broadcom is probably required to say, actually, this is what we're planning on doing. Even if they don't give detail, I think you kind of have to say, we've seen that there's a great investment future in VMware, and who knows, they might be taking some of the Symantec piece and some of the VMware piece and making it into this, UK-centric hyper secure cloud. I don't know. That's potentially not a bad idea, but
there is a comment on here about them looking to focus on Kubernetes, and that is definitely one of those buzzwords that's flowing around, especially in the developer scene, the developer scene at the moment. And I think that is, well, we all know, we're all technologists on this call, right? So the old school virtualization of the server, then virtualization of the application within what used to be Docker and now is Google's Kubernetes that's gone open source. So I can see that if they go down that route of almost functions as a service applications, it almost feels like they're taking aim not necessarily at Microsoft there, but potentially the customers that would normally go to AWS. You normally find the Netflixes sit on AWS. you know, those sort of non-enterprisey. It's just going to be an interesting change for them, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the commentaries I saw was that was what they envisaged was going to happen, because as you said earlier, that the Broadcom is typically moved towards the large enterprise, and potentially they want to have part of their organisation that continues to focus back on the slightly smaller side of things. So maybe that's what they're going for. Rebuying it, who knows?
I did see that actually. VMware already say on their website that although they support Azure, their partner of choice is AWS, and they are really pushing for people to be in AWS. So many years ago, as we know, VMware dropped their own cloud platform, and it looks like they chose AWS after. But one to watch would be, does that partnership suddenly start to crumble, and do they start pulling people away and at themselves? Just one to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think that's the outcome of it, isn't it? Is we don't know, we're guessing. But it'll be interesting, I think, because VMware is a big, well-known, well-established brand.
Yeah,
and that's important. Not to let that brand die. I think
you hit a good point there. Is it picking have they bought the brand or have they bought the technology?
Well, they're actually rebranding as Broadcom as well, as VMware, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
So maybe it's a reverse.
Yeah, maybe.
Reverse takeover.
It does say a lot for the VMware brand if it was worth 61 billion. Like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've concluded that we haven't really got a clue, but it was nice to talk about. So unless anybody's got any insider information from Broadcom, I think, I think it's one to watch, and I think it'd be a good one to actually pick up again later on when we get a bit more of an idea as to what they're actually doing. Cool. Okay. Right. Who fancies talking about their faces next? Shall we?
Okay, so my subject to discuss is Microsoft's recent announcement that they're taking machine learning away from facial analysis. The original scope that I believe what Microsoft were looking at was expressions, seeing whether you are happy with you or sad, and that has irked, I'm going to use that word very gently, regulatory bodies around the world to say, we don't know whether you should be doing this or not. And I think Microsoft have said, rather than go up against the EU, go up against USA privacy, they'd like to pull it away. My question to the panel is, was that the right move? Should they have gone through? Is there, with everything else that's happening in terms of artificial intelligence and visual analysis, is that a bad thing? Are we going backwards?
I never really got on with facial recognition anyway. Let's be straight. I have, as I said to you the other day, I have a problem with trying to get my fingerprint recognised on this machine. Yeah, it works fine on that one. So, I think facial recognition in itself, to unlock devices, I don't have a particular problem with, as long as there's that level of security that you can't just hold up a photo of someone's face and it's going to be fine. I think the bigger question around facial recognition is, what were they planning on using that machine learning for? Because when you think, I'm not saying that Microsoft would let this out into the public domain by any stretch of the imagination, but facial recognition plus cameras plus it all sounds very, very Big Brother, but you could do a lot if you had machine learning and facial recognition. Take it from a very sort of innocent level. You walk into a supermarket, the supermarket recognizes your face. All of a sudden you've got tailored offers, tailored advertising, whatever it is, the meet and greet, go, oh, hello, Mr. Vasey, whatever it is. That's at a very sort of innocent level. On a more complicated level, what about the traceability of people? What about where do you draw it? So I think, if it is used to unlock a device that you use regularly, I don't have a problem with it. I do have a problem with it, but obviously that's my face. But I think, what's the bigger plan? Because there's obviously something that has got people worried, and it can't just be, oh yeah, Pete can walk up to his machine and unlock it. It's like,
I think I might have the answer to that. I might have the answer to that.
Go on.
So I was thinking about this one last night. I think, why would the regulators be worried about it? And there was a film that came to mind. You might have all seen it, Minority Report. And there's a scene where Tom Cruise is
real though, right?
Well, yeah, but think about what's happening in that scene, right? That guy is walking down the street, and there is cameras, CCTV cameras looking. Now, I think in the movie it's based on Retina, but actually this technology would say, do you know what? We've had Chris sign up for, I don't know, in my case, I do cryptocurrency trading, and part of that I have to provide a facial to go with my passport. So I take a photo and it checks that against my passport to say I am who I am, and that's the artificial intelligence tying those two together. But in the scene in the film, Tom Cruise is walking down that street. The cameras are seeing him walking down that street, and guess what? Hey, Tom, come and have a look over here. Do you want to have a go on a holiday this week? Oh, Tom, I've got the perfect cookware for you. And is it the fact that sci-fi, those kind of sci-fi movies that are showing those privacy infractions of for commercial gain? And I guess if I put my regulator hat on and see why they might be doing it, saying, actually, are we scared about implementing this kind of facial recognition technology, because where does that lead to from a privacy side? And I can see, if that was, and I was walking down my local high street, that would scare the life out of me.
Right. So and this is kind of the point. If my facial recognition allows me to unlock from Windows onto my laptop, great. How does that facial recognition data make it out into the wider world? Because what you're talking about is Microsoft or an organization with unscrupulous morals selling your facial recognition data. Otherwise, you're going to have to sign up to something to say, I don't mind being facially recognized somewhere.
Well, don't people do that anyway? Today, even, how many times do people say, here's your end user license agreement? Do you scroll to the bottom? I know I don't.
Every word. It takes me 6 weeks to install an application.
It is all to do with security, isn't it? At the end of the day, that's what people want. They want secure devices, particularly their mobile devices, because you do your banking on it, you pay with it, everything, right? They want the security of having something that other people can't use. But that also links again to wider security, national security, all that kind of stuff, where facial recognition is potentially used. I don't know if it is or not really, but it's to do with us, with making us safe, making us secure, isn't it? And so that's the driver always, isn't it? It's always be about security. So despite the protestations from people, it will still be a need for people to want to feel secure, and therefore regulation will follow that. In my mind, it's kind of that's all.
So on a national security level, right? I fall into the camp of, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. So I don't care if they want to go and search my face. Yeah, fill your boots. I had a MOT infringement back in 1991 or whatever it was. But I can understand why people would feel uncomfortable about it. But there were trials definitely going on where tube stations, etc., had facial recognition to be able to spot the troublemakers walking in and out of out of their stations, etc. And I fully get that, and I don't have a problem with that, provided it's all accurate. I think that the question for me is why has Microsoft dropped it? What is it that
Saying
Microsoft are?
responsible AI standards. Microsoft says it intends to keep people and their goals at the center of system design and system design decisions. So yeah, it's part of their overall AI overhaul. Ethics
but
policies is what they're calling it.
So does your facial recognition then, when you do hello, does that get stored somewhere else as part of the machine learning?
I don't think it gets stored. It gets used to train the model, doesn't it? So your face would, the picture of your face wouldn't necessarily be stored in there, but the actual algorithm that works out whether you're male, female, whether you're 10 or 100, that whole model is used to train. I think what I find interesting here is why Microsoft is probably the relevant is they're a public cloud provider which provides this service to the likes of Uber, to the cryptocurrency services, right? That they are a central location for learning about this. You take your choice there about the train stations. When does it become unacceptable? So if you're starting to say market analysis, so yeah, you're looking for troublemakers, but actually if you're starting to use that and say we've had in the past hour we've had 150 females that are age 25 and below, and 600 males 60 and above, is there an ethics question there, or is that just good marketing, using the tools to provide good marketing?
But it's still, to me, it still comes back as to I don't understand why Microsoft have dropped it, because I completely get what you're saying, you know, ethical and stuff. And I think, to be honest, I don't think we'll have much of a chance on that. I think it will happen and it will come in, whether that's in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. You know, I think it will come at some point, but I don't understand why it's dropped out from a service that allows me to log on to my machine. What's the link between that and what they're doing with that data? Yeah,
I don't think they're dropping that. It's Windows Hello, isn't it? I don't think they're necessarily dropping that security, because if you think your iPhone is the same thing, right? Face ID and iPhone, and I'm certainly not hearing any rumblings from the industry that they're planning on dropping that. In fact, if anything, they've been pushing that over the Touch ID for however.
So it's just the analysis of the.
It's the analysis, and I think this one, what Microsoft is saying is that this emotion analysis is what it's called. Okay. They're not investing in that. They've pulled back on that. Are people happy? Have people sad?
Well,
and I suppose
people want to know when I'm miserable when I sign into work, they're fine.
Yeah. See, the question there goes is don't jump on a video call with Pete because he's got an angry frown for the last 2 hours.
That does make sense, though. If it's about emotions, coming back to your thing about walking down the street and something calls out to you, if it knows that you're sad and it suddenly shouts out at the top of its voice,
Valium or something.
Yeah, Valium, antidepressants over here.
Cheer up, idiot.
Yeah, then I can understand privacy. It's like, I don't want people knowing if I'm sad. Like, I'm not sad. Yes, you are, says the computer. Like, yeah.
So the wording now is no longer the computer says no, the computer says so.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh man, right. I think we probably need to draw a line under this one, because this is starting a downward spiral, isn't it? Anyway, cool. That was good. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much, folks. That is Stephen Smith, who is Senior Project Manager. Lewis Wheeler, Senior Consultant. Chris Burns, Senior Technical Architect. And I'm Pete Vasey. I hope you've enjoyed it. I think the next one might be under a new title. Watch this space. Brilliant. Thank you very much, gents.
This is the Mod Pod, brought to you by Modality, helping businesses optimize their Microsoft technologies everywhere.